Here is my Terminator Chaplain. I went ahead and gave him a good prime. I used the white prime, the Army Painter flat white, because I want to do the base as a glaze. I really like the way that turned out the first times. I tried that with my Primaris Captain. So I want to try something similar here. And so this very next step, of course, is to apply the base. Not that base, but the base paint. And so I'm gonna figure that out. I am torn between using the Corvus Black and using the Army Painter Flat Black. I don't know which way to go on this. I'll probably end up with the flat black. Although, I don't know. Corvus is a nice color. It's harder to work with, though, to get it out of the pot. All right. So, my Corvus Black is all in here. You know what? Since I'm going to do the glaze, I'm going to go with a darker flat black. I'll get rid of this painting wand. My wet palette has been prepped, so the parchment paper is prepared. And so, time to break out Matthew Black. I'm going to make sure to only use the black on those parts that are going to be black, or that will have a black undercoat. All too often I'm just tempted to just go in and slap black on the whole thing, but that's going to give me some trouble with the cape, the Crozius Arcanum. The scrolls maybe not so much, but maybe this one, because it's such a large scroll, maybe that will be a thing. And also the weapons. I want them to be kind of a bright red. I'm pretty happy with the way my little combi melta turned out, I'm not going to lie. That's pretty neat. I could glue that on, but it's going to give me some trouble, I think, to kind of paint the inside part of what is essentially a storm bolter, but it's more of a combi melta, really. So I'll paint them separately and then glue them together towards the end. All right, let's do this. That might be enough. It's not quite 1-to-1, so it's a little bit more paint than there is water. I'll start here, I guess. I'm using this radial brush. See how that glaze kind of leaves a lot of lows and highlights it, and it really has a nice effect. I really like the way that looks. I really should use this approach for more of my models. And ultimately, you know, if you really want to darken it up to make it absolutely black, you can always give it another coat. But I like the way this looks. You know, maybe not for every model, but for at least some models. And I know that I'm going to do some black here and maybe some metallics. So any metallics will be will have a black undercoat. I'm just not sure what I want to do with that yet. And I know obviously this thing here is going to have black, but I'm going to wait and do the cape first before I commit to a color. I really don't know what I'm going to do with this base. No idea what I'm doing with this base. All right, I'm gonna let it draw. I'm gonna let it dry, and then I'll come back and kind of do some basing on the cape and some of the other pieces of it. And I need to do research. Find some examples of what people did, because I have no idea. All right, it's been a little while since I started. I was having some technical issues, but I think I have them all resolved now, I hope. I'll know in the editing booth. So I have our Terminator Chaplain all based up. So all the pieces, for the most part, pardon my pooch, he's having a hard day. There are neighbors about. Raleigh. So I went with that kind of a black glaze as opposed to some other I went with that black glaze. And as a result, I don't know that I have to do a lot of edge highlighting. The color's kind of wrong. I don't really want... It looks pretty stark white. I could go over that in gray, but I don't know if that'll take away from the glazing effect. Let me do a quick pretend assemble here. So it's kind of what it looks like. I mean, it looks decent, actually. It looks decent without the edge highlighting. I don't know if it's all the way decent, but it's pretty decent. I think I'll still give him an edge highlight, just because I'm not sure I'm wild about the color that I've got here. So the only things I haven't based are just like this little detail here on the Crozius. He's got that little halo thing, and I think I'm gonna make that blue, since there's kind of some kind of like force element to it. So I'm gonna make that blue. And I haven't done any of the blending, so I intend to blend stuff like this. So I did something different. I used 2 different shades of red. I usually avoid that because I'm not really good with colors, but I figured, the cloth or the fabric can be one kind of red and the metallic can be a different kind of red. I hope that looks okay. I'm not sure. Maybe with the edge highlighting on the gun. So anyway, so there's that. I've also got this guy. All right, so I've got this guy. This is the helmet. I'm not really happy with the look. It feels a little greeny, but I think he'll be okay. So I've got most of the elements. What's left to do is, well, I've got quite a bit to do. Oh, I forgot to mention the base. So I went ahead and worked with the base. So I chose kind of a dark brown, muddy kind of a feel. So I've got two basic elements here. I've got the brown of the stone, and the entire base got this kind of a brown all over it. And then on top of that, I added, what was it? I think it was a Grelin Earth. I think it was this guy, and it dried up to look like this. And I really like the way it looks, especially since it's got a couple of like craters in there, and the craters have a different texture than the non-crater, and I like that. And so I think I'm going to go with some kind of rusty metal for this thing. It looks like a thatch, but who would put an Aquila over a thatch rug or mat? So I'm going to pretend it's metal. I'm going to give it a coat of metal, gunmetal, and then apply some Fuegan Orange to give it a rusted look. The Aquila will be on there in the usual gold. And this guy, I haven't decided what this guy's going to be yet. But I've got a good start on this base. It looks better than I expected. And obviously, the stone-looking thing is going to get some dry brushing to bring out the stone part, just kind of the stone feel. So I'm feeling all right about that. So I'm going to go ahead and start on painting this thing. I suspect I have to change out the paper because it's been a little bit since I used this. One of the things I have to decide is what to do about those leg braces and this detail here. Could go with like a skeleton bone, which would be kind of a nice change of pace, but you know, I've got some other parts of skeleton bone. Maybe I'll just stick with the bolt or the metal, the gunmetal, and then just do the edge highlighting on that stuff, the dry brush stuff. All right, so I've got some work to do. I'm gonna start with some general kind of edge highlighting, and then I'm gonna go from there into adding some of the detail. I think that should work okay. So I think I'll start with the edge highlighting. I'm going to need a darkish gray for this. Of course, there's a bit of a brown tint to that uniform gray. To the dark stone. I don't know what that's going to look like. Let's find out. All right, it's not showing up almost at all. Okay, I went too dark. That's fine. Uniform gray it is. So I've made some progress on our buddy here, the Terminator Chaplain. And I'm about ready to start on final assembly, basically gluing stuff down before I do the finishing touches. But there's two parts that I want to talk about before I do that. And so one of them is this red material. So I've prepped it for what I think is going to be kind of shading or blending. I forget what it's called, but basically it's a technique where you highlight the shadows and the whatever the reverse of shadows are. And so it's ready for its overcoat of kind of a red glaze. So I did that here. I chose this rather than the scroll work just because I wanted it to be a little different. And, you know, it could be like a tabard. Sure, why not? I've done the same thing to the cape. I'm not sure if the darks are dark enough, but we can play around with it. And so this is also ready for a bit of a glaze of red. And the other thing I wanted to highlight was, well, it came from this. I was being a little, I don't know, cute with my basing. And so since I was doing the kind of glaze base, I guess, I decided to try that with the bone. I'm using skeleton bone as kind of an accent color. And so I did that to this shield. It's a, you know, it comes from, I think it was a dreadnought, but I thought it was a good place for it here. The idea was that I'm going to add this little Inquisition sign that I got from the upgrade sprue. I'm going to put it on there, but I wanted it to have a decent looking base, and I thought it was pretty nice. And so I tried this technique. It's basically, I don't know, I haven't seen it online. I'm sure it's around, but I just haven't seen any videos on it. I'm calling it a glaze fill. And so basically, when I have an enclosed area like this, I like to just dab a brush that's loaded with plenty of glaze, and it leaves this very nice kind of gradient on it that I could not possibly get on my own. Like, I know people can do, you know, wet blending and stuff like that. That is not one of my skill sets. So whenever I have an opportunity to do this glaze fill, I swear I'm gonna feel so stupid when I find out the real name of that technique used by my betters. But it does, like I said, whenever I can, I try to employ it because I don't know, it finishes off things in a way that I just can't do myself. And this model gave me an opportunity to do the same thing here. It looks pretty decent, not as cool as that other place, but so here, because it's a glaze, you kind of have to let gravity pull the excess shading or the excess paint to where you want it. So once I filled in, so these are, you know, completely filled in surfaces, but they're curved, so they're a little weird. So, you know, I dabbed in each of those, not squares, but each of those recesses. And I made sure that we're all nice and filled. And then I stood it up on its base so that gravity would pull down the paint towards the bottom. And it kind of mostly did that. This one right here is a little less clean, like this one right here. But it's pretty decent. Did the same thing with the knee pads. Not as cleanly as I would have liked. Maybe go back and retouch those. I'm not proud of the way those fleur-de-lis shaped up. And there's one more place where I was able to do that. It's the very same thing. And that was with these shoulder pads. So, same kind of deal, glaze filled. Now I have to decide what to do kind of around it. Probably I'm going to keep a lot of black on there because the black contrasts well with that skeleton bone color. But, so that's all the progress I've done here. The head still looks kind of weird. I am not so happy with the head, but maybe a nice wash will sweep away my poor handling of this poor skeleton head. So that's the hope there. Here's the base with, I think it's going to be its final kind of painting anyway. I'm having some trouble with the dry brush. It's still coming off thicker than I'd like. So I didn't have the very clean edges the way I wanted, but it's going to be good enough, I think. There's a nice kind of rust effect on the metal, although it looks less rusty and more like a metallic orange, which, I'm fine with. I mean, I probably have some detail work left to go there, and I probably want to add some kind of skull from my collection of 300 and something skulls that I got not too long ago. But other than that, I think the base is almost ready. I have to do something there, some kind of wash there, and then I have to kind of ring it with some black. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on camera applying the glaze to that cape. I really hope it works the way I had envisioned it in my head, but you just never know. So I'm ready to do some furious correcting if this thing goes wrong. So for this, I want a glaze. So I have added plenty of water so that it's nice and thin, and I can apply multiple coats until I have the desired effect. Well, wish me luck, because here we go. Well, I'm not crazy about these results. The glaze seems to have overpowered the highlights and done very little to tamp down the shading. So I'm not sure. The shading looks really defined. I don't like that at all. I'm going to try a couple more coats before I give up on that experiment, because I'm just not sure about that. Here, I'll kind of do a little closer. This is the underside of the cape. Yeah, I'm having the same trouble where the white gets overpowered pretty quickly by the glaze, and the dark is almost unaffected. Pardon my pooch. He's having a crisis. There's people outside. I'll let this to dry. I'm going to try it here. I don't know if this is going to translate, but can you guys hear the joys of apartment living? It's great. I wouldn't trade it for the world. All right, there we are. I'm going to let these dry for a bit. We'll come back to them and see what they look like and reassess. So I'm done blending. Well, I guess not really done, but I think this is as good as it's going to get for me. And so here's where I am. You can kind of see some shadows. They're kind of splotchy and I don't like them. This part is even worse. I'm almost wondering if I should just darken the entire cape on this backside and try that. So just my level of success here was not what I'd like. And I can go back and try to do a bit more, but I'm just not sure how many layers of paint I can put on this thing. I will notice though that some of these, so this is a bit of the white highlight that did make it through. So I think that for highlighting purposes, I just need to make a thicker line. The shadows, I don't know how to make that less conspicuous. It looks like I brushed it on. So maybe it's just a matter of practice, although this may not be the model I should be practicing on. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back on this entire backside and just give it a good black wash, go over it again with a couple of coats of the glaze, and that should be that. So I'm going to try that, and hopefully I have better success. So I was less than happy with the results I had. And while this dries a bit, I'm going to go ahead and do just a little bit of gluing. So the final assembly for this guy. All right. I mean, it's a little big for that piece, but I think it'll look okay. It's a decent amount of shinies. And I'll also stick these together. You know, that's not a bad bit of kitbashing right there. I'd say it's my best work so far, but that's not saying a ton. But I like it. I was able to do what I wanted to do. It looks like a combi melta. Stormbolter style. I like it. I like it a lot. While this dries, I'm going to go ahead and do some some of the gold work on this thing. And so these metallic paints settle out. The flakes kind of settle to the bottom within an hour or two. So you want to give them a good mixing. I use a stirring stick so that I don't get paint in my brush ferrules. Ferrules? I'm not sure how to say that. I've seen some videos on YouTube about how really good painters get metallic effects off of non-metallic paints, and they generally look better than anything I can do with actual metallic paints. I think it's a combination of blending and color theory, or I don't know, but they do amazing work. I'm afraid you're not going to see that here. That is not the skill level I am capable of, but I do admire it. It is pretty freaking awesome, I will say that. Basically, I've decided to give this highlighting another shot. I really want this to work. So if it means doing a few more coats, I will give it the shot. It may be at the end of the day that I just don't have the right skill level, or I'm just doing something wrong. I don't know what the deal is, but I'm not quite ready to give up yet. And yeah, maybe this is not the model I should be experimenting with. But here I am. This is one of those models that, they're kind of hard to get, not really being made, and they probably won't be made again. They're kind of a big deal. So you should not be experimenting with it. But I figure if in the future, if I become just an awesome painter, I can always come back and either try to fix it or just strip the paint and try again. Went ahead and let this dry for a while. I retouched the white parts and I made them darker this time. This kind of got out of control for me, so let's see what happens there. So I'm going to try a little bit of the red glaze and hope this works. What I probably should have done is I should have done a different color on the inside than on the outside. Oh well. That's fine. Let's see what it looks like when it's dry. Probably have to hit it with one more coat. Alright, so I finished with what I'm calling the blending. And this is probably as good as I can make it. Clearly need a bit more instruction on the whole thing, but this will have to do for now. I'll proceed to the assembly process. I've got most of the stuff that I need to paint before assembly taken care of. Okay, so I'm going to start with the glue. I know this isn't painting like the title of the video suggests, but it is part of the painting process, for this model at least. Alright, and this time I got the head before I finished the whole paint job. I usually forget about the head and I have to rush to do something with it. It seems that I've learned my lesson, although I probably haven't. He's mostly done. Got a couple of more elements, a couple more details to work on, like the chain back here. I do something with the Aquila up there, and then that shoulder pad. I need to put some detail on it. Oh, and I need to put some stuff here on the Crozius. So he's almost done. He's okay so far. The last bit of detailing I'm about to do isn't going to change that a ton, because basically he's in the shape he's going to be in. All right, so there's the assembly. I'm going to work on the detail. Well, you know what? Before I do that, I want to introduce this last element. that I hadn't talked about yet. So there's a skull on this side, and I just don't like it. It looks kind of gross. So my plan is I'm going to put a skull, a big old skull, right here. And I thought I had the placement kind of figured out, but maybe having him on the platform is going to interfere with that. Alright, so I'm just going to leave it there. And so I'll figure out a way to glue it down. I think it's just glue. It's just going to make contact on some parts. Alright. So now that I know how I want them, I'm going to try to glue it down. I hope that's enough to leave the skull there. So it's just kind of protruding there. Gonna have to turn the model around to see where the skull ended up. May need to go back and touch it up a little bit because it didn't like being handled very much. All right. So now that I'm at this stage, and I want to limit how much I'm touching it, I attempt to put it on this painting handle. There we go. All right, it's detail time. I'm really not enjoying how this gold paint settles immediately after I stop stirring it for a while. Like within minutes, it'll start settling, and it leaves me with just like this yellow pigment, which is not really what I want. I really should have gotten this piece before I glued everything together. I even saw it and I was like, nah, who's going to ever see it there? And sure enough, it's totally visible. See how it's already settled? Really don't know what's happening with this metallic paint. All right, just gonna give another give those laurels another pass off camera, and we should be done. Well, here he is, my very own Space Marine Terminator Chaplain. He's joining my Deathwatch army, and he's table ready. He's not beautiful the way I'd like for him to be, but for my skill level, I did alright. I can't complain. I mean, I can, but nobody listens to me complain. So yeah, this guy took a little longer than I expected, mostly because I spent a lot of time attempting to do the blending on the cape. And, I mean, there was an attempt. It's my second or third attempt at this, and I haven't gotten as good as I expected at this point. Like, I got the edge highlighting technique not down, but I've done quite a bit better after the second and third attempts. This guy with the blending, it seems to be a bit of a more advanced technique that's just slightly out of my comfort zone. It doesn't mean I'm not going to get it. It just means I'm not there yet. So I have to go back to YouTube, learn from people who do that job really well, learn from them and keep practicing. Ideally, not on, rare figures like this one, but still, I got to practice some more. That's clear. At any rate, he's table ready, and he's ready to join his buddies, the Terminator squad, or well, not squad, but my intent is to have this Terminator to lead my melee-focused Terminators like this guy. He's one of the several kind of melee-focused Terminators I've got. The other two that I have, they're also from the Space Marines Heroes Series 2 collection. And I'm going to put these guys over here. And so here they are. These guys, well, they're Terminators, and they're cool looking. But they're not going to join these two guys in melee. They have heavy weapons, and so the idea is they'll be shooting from a little further away. These guys are going to get into the Xenos' faces and, bash them in. Pretend like. So I hope, I hope you picked something up to kind of see, maybe you learned a little bit about some easy customization options, like I did there and there, and there. That was probably the thing I'm most proud of in this model. I'm less happy with that filling technique that I tried. It's okay, but it's a little sloppy. It's a little sloppy and it's a little hard to fix. But, it was all right. So, yeah, I hope you learned something. I hope that you at least noticed something that I did wrong, and now that you know that you shouldn't do it because it's going to look like that, then you learn from my mistakes. That would be cool too. At any rate, guys, thank you for your support. Thank you for watching, and have a very nice evening, or morning, or noon, or night, whatever it is, wherever you are. Peace.